Hey, there you are. Welcome back to the channel. This is the most disturbing videos on the internet today. Let's dive in.
Under the waves is where we belong.
Would you please explain how they moved many multi-ton stone blocks back in those days? If you built that, well, go ahead, try and explain that. We can't even move them today with our machinery. It wasn't built by any technology that we've had in the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. No way. Plus, the quarry where most of that limestone came from was 500-600 miles or kilometers away from where the pyramid is sitting. So how do you move big blocks like that? No way. Would you please explain how they move?
To somebody, please explain that.
This miraculous staircase defies the laws of physics, and no one even knows who built it. In 1878, they're building this chapel in Santa Fe, New Mexico, when all of a sudden the French architect leading the construction just nowhere. The chapel was almost done, but a crucial staircase to the choir loft was never finished, and without the architect, no one knew how to do it. So the nuns of the chapel prayed to Saint Joseph for 9 days straight for someone to be sent to finish building these stairs. And lo and behold, at the end of the 9th day, a man with a toolbox riding a donkey comes into the chapel from across the desert. He tells the nuns he was sent there to finish building the stairs, but they had to grant him complete privacy during the entire process. He takes 3 months to fully construct this spiral staircase that leads into the upper loft and then just leaves without telling anyone. This is where it starts to get crazy. The nuns realized they didn't even pay him, so they went to their local lumberyard to ask how much they owed for this project. The lumberyard workers tell the nuns that no one ever came to get wood from them to build those stairs. And this is in the middle of the desert in 1878, mind you. Wood is not easy to come by nor transport. There wasn't no Home Depot door delivery service back then. Upon closer look at the staircase, the chapel curator realized not a single nail was used in its construction, yet it somehow was held up perfectly secure, measuring 20 feet high and making 2 full turns without any support from a central pole. He brings in over 120 spiral staircase experts to investigate it further, and not one of them could explain how this set of stairs was built. They described it as being physically impossible to create. Even stranger still, the exact wood used to build the staircase was confirmed to be a type of spruce which is not native to New Mexico and is also scientifically not identified anywhere else in the world. This is the mystery of the Loretto Chapel and its miraculous staircase, which still remains unexplained today. The sisters of the chapel believe that Saint Joseph, who was a carpenter, came and built those stairs himself, which also happened to have exactly 33 steps, commonly regarded to be the age of Christ at the time of his crucifixion. This miraculous staircase defies the laws of physics, and no one even knows who.
Well, add it to a list of mysterious buildings that we can't explain how they were really built.
Gente! Nossa, mas é o que? É o sol? Que isso? Meu Deus! Gente, tá parecendo um emoticon, parece uma mentira. Que isso?
I have the Aries tech all over my house. People are arguing online. Yeah, it's a gimmick. It doesn't work. Well, there's a bunch of technology around it. This is a microprocessor built by their Russian operatives that worked for the part of the military. They were working with radar and they wanted to protect their soldiers. So they took that technology and they built a company. This is the company that's sponsoring the UFC right now as well. So I have this. I have a large credit card that I sleep next to my bed. I have them in my children's room.
And what does that do?
It harmonizes and manages and mitigates the electromagnetic pollution and electromagnetic radiation that's everywhere. Because your cell phone works, right? Can you get a signal? Can you make a phone call?
Yeah, that thing
it
everywhere.
Works. It's pretty magical, right? Well, what are those waves doing to you? How are they hitting your body? They told me, because I did brain scans with them last week at Tim Welch's gym, there's square waves that hit you, and nature comes in a sine wave that can be discordant, and it throws you out of balance.
Interesting. I just would like to block the waves completely altogether. But the only way to do that, I believe, is to go to live in the rainforest. That's not the sun, that's Nibiru. How crazy would it be if that actually was Nibiru, though?
Rothschild family history. This is an antique family photo. A lot of you want to know what it meant. Who was the nanny with the horns? It's not a nanny. It has to do with like this tradition, custom, ritualistic ball. And it's called the Rothschild Surrealist Ball. And it started way back then. Yesterday I told you about their family history and who they are, what they want the world to know. Wikipedia has a whole bunch of stuff on them, but I'm going to tell you what Wikipedia won't tell you. This means something. It's not just a weird costume. Every costume has a lot of symbolic meaning, and we're going to break it down. Rothschilds are real party animals. They have been hosting the weirdest, most elaborate parties for hundreds of years. Hundreds. Someone asked me if that was the nanny. The real question is, do you see how tall that entity is? Keep that in mind. The horned figure has to do with some people called the Chateau. The Chateau are Freemasons from ancient Egypt. The Chateau were the people that helped Amun-Ra escape when there was the Second Pyramid War. You know, when the Anunnaki bloodlines started warring with each other because Marduk wanted to be in command and he wanted to kick out Enlil and Enki, his father and his uncle. All about that. And it also can go back all the way to the lands of Canaan and the worshiping of Baal. You know, the demon with the horns, with the goat head. So every time that they host one of these elaborate balls, you're always going to have someone is wearing horns, a deer head, goat head, horns. Someone has to be, because it's part of the tradition, it's part of the ritual. These parties are also a ritual. Important families like them will call them family traditions. I call them rituals. So the tradition is the hypothetical ritual. These parties are not just parties where you go, you have fun, and you dress up. There are after-party activities also, which include the ancient tradition of hunting down the stag. I really think that that movie about the bride that was marrying into that millionaire family, and they all did this weird game that they went around, trying to get her at the end, and if they didn't get her by the next day, then she won. You know what I'm talking about? That's the kind of after party I'm talking about. You know, these family traditional things, which intrigues so many people on so many levels.
How creepy and disturbing.
Every cell is like a little water balloon, and it has a membrane around it. That membrane is primarily made of oil, but it must be made of the correct oil. Because if you don't make it of the correct oil, the membrane will not function normally. The functions of the membrane is to allow oxygen into the cell. When you make the membrane out of the correct oil, you maximize oxygen transfer into the cell. When you make it out of the oils you purchase at the supermarket, you prevent oxygen from getting into the cell. One other thing you have to do is normalize your pH. This is absolutely critical. Inside this water balloon, inside your cell, is water. And that water must be kept within a very narrow pH range, because that influences a whole bunch of other chemistry inside the cell. If you change the pH, even slightly, you change an enormous amount of chemistry in the cell. When you do that, you're sick. Health is when the cell is functioning normally. Disease is when you have altered that normal function. If you change the pH inside the cell, even slightly, you change an enormous number of chemistry and you are now sick. It is not possible to be well unless the pH in the cell is normal. So, especially for people, you must normalize your pH. There is no way you can get around it. Now, you can have normal pH, but you can still be sick for other reasons. But if your pH is not normal, there is no way you can ever be well. So you must normalize the pH. Then you must remove toxins. Remember, there's only 2 causes of disease, only 2 reasons why cells malfunction. One of them is deficiency, the other is toxicity. Today, the average person is a toxic waste dump. We have created a toxic world. We're all toxic waste dumps, and you must get rid of the toxins if you expect to get well. So there are 3 things you have to do with the toxins. 1, stop putting them in. You have to learn where they are, and I have whole chapters in my books. I have whole chapters on toxicity. So where are the toxins? Stop putting them in. So the bad news is you are a toxic waste dump. The good news is that you have personal control over about 80% of your toxic load. That's pretty significant. If you accept that responsibility, if you exercise that control, you can reduce your toxic burden by 80%, and that is very, very significant.
I never felt so educated and insulted at the same time ever in my life before. Gotta take care of your temple is a nicer way to say it.
One way for you to experience the vibration of your forehead, plug up each nostril with a thumb, and you put your fingers on your forehead like this, and you push up with your fingers, and you go, oh. You can feel your forehead vibrating quite powerfully. There is a small organ in the inner ear called the saccule. And the saccule is about the size of a pea, and it's got liquid in it, and it's got little grains of sand and nerves all over the inside of it. And it's used to detect the position of the head in relation to gravity. Now, the saccule in reptiles and also in whales and dolphins happens to be a hearing organ. It is a hearing organ that receives ultrasonic frequencies, but only if they're transmitted physically through the body. In other words, ultrasound coming through the air doesn't affect the saccule, but if it's transmitted physically through the body, the saccule becomes a hearing organ, and it's got nerves running all over the brain that have nothing to do with balance. It's got nerves running to the hearing part of the brain and various other parts. And in fact, it's impossible to trace all the nerves running from the saccule to the different parts of the brain. So it's a very significant organ because it's a hearing organ that we have that we don't use. How could the human body receive ultrasonic sound physically through the body itself? There's only one way in nature that could happen, and that would be if we were in the ocean and a whale or a dolphin was scanning us with their ultrasonic sound frequencies. If you've ever swam with whales, you know that when they emit ultrasonic sound bursts, you can hear it, and most of us think we're hearing it with our ears, but you're actually hearing it through your saccule. We build an ultrasonic downverter, which is an ultrasonic microphone that takes ultrasonic sound and then converts it down into the range of ordinary human hearing. And then we put the neurophone on our head, and then we walked around with the downverter to see what kind of signal came off the human head when we were listening to the neurophone. Front of the forehead emits signals, ultrasonic signals, in a very tight beam, just like ultrasonic magnifier or just like an ultrasonic lens. And it has side lobes. In fact, it looks a little bit like the signal off a YAG antenna.
Do you guys hear what he's saying? I don't know if you guys ever watched Aquaman, but you ever see how he talks to the fish and it's like those little circles are shooting forward? That's basically what's going on here is what I'm getting from this.
An electromagnetic signal. So when you put the neurophone on, you're transmitting this powerful ultrasonic signal off the front of your head. And this might explain some of the telepathic stuff that we've experienced with the neurophone. Since we can record and hear ultrasonic sound through the body, and our foreheads, sinuses, sinus cavities are ultrasonic radiators. Maybe we can figure out a way to create ultrasonic sound using a human voice box.
Guys, I kid you not. I can't even tell you how many times I've reached for my phone, and right when I reach for it, somebody called me, or I just feel like, dang, somebody's calling me. And then I'll reach for my phone, and next thing you know, it'll start ringing. You know, that's before I even hear the ringer. So there's something's going on here. Some type of something is floating through the airways. I can't explain it.
And so I began working on that, and I discovered several ways of creating ultrasonic sound using our own voice. And it's interesting that there are different ways of doing it. That's one way. If you can direct sounds from your throat, vocal pulses or other sounds, up into your sinuses, they vibrate and generate ultrasonic overtones. So I taught some friends how to do this, and they were going to Hawaii, and they wanted to swim with dolphins, and so they went to this bay where dolphins sometimes come, and there were no dolphins, and I had taught them how to make the ultrasonic sound. So I said, well, next time you go in the water, I want you to go underwater and generate the ultrasonic tone, and I want you to move your head back and forth, underwater, back and forth, slowly.
Is this dude Aquaman communicating with the dolphins?
Like you're scanning, and just transmit that sound off your forehead into the water and see what happens. So they went in the bay, and there were no dolphins around. They were very disappointed. They went underwater. They did the exercise. 15 minutes later, they had 400 dolphins around them. And these dolphins were scanning them intensely with their sonar to the point where their bodies were vibrating to the point they could hardly stand it. It was so strong. And they said, why do you think the dolphins did that? And I said, well, dolphins and whales have been saying, God, you guys are our ancient ancestors and you don't remember, and someday you're going to remember how to make ultrasonic sound and you're going to come communicate. And so, because they can tell a mechanical ultrasonic oscillator or electronic one from an organic one. And when they heard that organic beam coming through the water, they knew that was a human making that sound. And
did you hear him? He said organic beam. Damn, how tight is that?
That he had to be doing it consciously. I said, next time they come to see you, just communicate with them. Just send a beam at them and think the thought, how are you? You know, like, yes, that was me, and how are you? Just think the thought. Doesn't matter what the sound is, it's just a carrier. And so I said, and then listen to the dolphin. When they scan you, just see if you got any, like, weird thoughts or things. You know, and it might be something they're transmitting. You know, they might go, yes, we heard you, we are here. and just kind of realize that the human voice carries certain kinds of information, but the intention when we're speaking is what really is carried on top of that. And I believe that intention is the most powerful communications device that we've got, and our ability to transmit intention with our words is most important, because you can tell someone I love you, and if your intention isn't there, then they know that wasn't genuine, because the intention is what really communicates. One way for you to experience the vibration.
So next time you guys see some dolphins, you got to charge up first. How did he do it? You got to push it on your forehead. You'll have to go back and see how he did it. I forgot already. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, because I do these videos every single day. And I love to see you around here. So let's get straight back into the action. He destroyed fear forever.
The more you rehearse the worst-case scenario in your mind, the more your nervous system believes it's real. And when your brain believes the threat is real, it floods your body with signals to retreat. Heart racing, breath shallow, muscles tense. Suddenly, you're not living in the present. You're imprisoned in a future that hasn't even happened. And in that state, even the smallest step forward feels impossible. But here's the breakthrough. If fear is built by repetition, so is confidence. If fear is a story, you can tell a better one. one where you speak and you're heard, one where you leap and you land, one where you fail and rise anyway. Because the truth is, the mind can't tell the difference between imagination and memory. If you can visualize defeat, you can visualize victory. If you can rehearse disaster, you can also rehearse domination. This is the battlefield, not out there, but in here. And the moment you stop accepting fear's script and start rewriting it, you take back control. You don't have to feel brave to act brave. You don't have to feel certain to move forward. You just have to stop giving fear the mic, because the voice in your head is powerful, but it doesn't always tell the truth. And the biggest lie it tells is that fear is your limit. It's not. It's your signal. It's the flag that says you're standing at the edge of your growth. And what happens next? That's up to you. Fear grows in the dark, in silence, in avoidance. The more you run from it, the bigger it gets. The more you try to outthink it, the louder it becomes. Because fear doesn't shrink with time. It shrinks with exposure. And this is where most people get it wrong. They wait for courage to arrive before they take the leap. They wait for the fear to fade before they take the first step. But courage doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Imagine standing at the edge of a freezing pool. You can dip your toe in, walk away, come back tomorrow, overthink it again, and still feel cold just looking at it. Or you can jump in, shock your system, let your body adapt, and in a few seconds you're no longer afraid. Why? Because you've experienced what your mind exaggerated. That's exposure. It's not about being fearless. It's about being willing to feel the fear and still step forward, willing to look uncertainty in the eye and say, you're not the end, you're the beginning. This is how you kill fear. Not with avoidance, but with exposure. You lean into what terrifies you. You practice the uncomfortable. You make it familiar. And the more familiar it becomes, the less power it holds over you.
The disturbing reality about fear. If you thought I didn't have an excellent specimen for you today, think again. Fix your eyes on this calcite. If this isn't an octahedral, I don't know what is. You can definitely see it. It's clear as day. With the honeycomb-like structures. Almost gives like a coffee with creamer vibe. If I had to name this piece, I would call this Milk Chocolate Octahedral.
Is this unassuming picture taken off the shores of Antarctica perhaps the most important photograph ever taken in human history? Stick around, I'll explain more. This man's name is George Rayner, and he's a biologist. And he unknowingly possibly took the most important picture in human history while he was down in Antarctica exploring whales. There is a large faction of people that believe what he captured here beyond the ice wall is actually the edge of our known world, the firmament. And that might sound crazy to you, but I'm going to provide you with some evidence that might make you think it's not so crazy. Let's first get a point of reference by looking at this GoFast rocket that was launched from Arizona that went straight up and at about 72 miles appeared to hit something, a barrier of some sort. And if we are potentially living under a dome and we look at Arizona, it would be closer to the highest part of the dome. So 72 miles here would lead to a lower resting dome down towards Antarctica. And when you scour the internet and you find encyclopedia information pre-NASA, this is what you find.
I'm going to show you the Encyclopedia Britannicas in the public libraries before 1958. Here's volume 2 out of the alphabet A. And we're going to flip to the Antarctica from 1958 before the Antarctic Treaty says the flights proved inland areas to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. When they returned to New Zealand, these flights proved the inland areas to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south.
So 72 miles high And when you get closer to Antarctica, as in New Zealand and Australia, 13,000 feet is where they're saying the dome is, which is about 3 miles. So going from 72 miles down to about 3 miles. At some point, it seems like that is going to connect to the known grounds. And when you colorize this photo and look at it closer and compare what that looks like to the ripples of water, they look almost identical. And when you look at other photos from this man's camera, you see it's not just a phenomenon caused from the camera or the type of photography or even the lens, but it is very specific to this area here beyond the glacier or ice wall or whatever this is. It's specific to the background. So like I said in the beginning, is this photograph potentially the most important photograph that has ever been taken in modern history? And do the shape of rainbows actually reflect the fact that we are in fact living under a dome? God's special dome that he created to protect us from Lord knows what else is out there, because I think we're living in a little anthole in a much, much bigger flat realm. Oh, and I didn't even mention the fact that when you take a different perspective, you see what this mountain actually is. Mouth, nose, eyes, you know. But as always, you guys know I'm just joking. I know that's probably just the fact that the camera couldn't adjust the focus so it rippled. It's not actually frozen water, and we're not actually under a dome. We live on a globe spinning 400,000 miles per hour hurling through the universe. Of course, entertainment purposes. Have a great day.
Wow, so he's saying that's actual water. I wonder if you took a boat, how would that work? Would the boat just go directly towards it? Could you dive under it? You know they would have had to drive up on it if they all seen that. That's all we have for today's video. The code word is Saturday Dive. Go ahead and drop Saturday Dive in the comments below. It lets me know you're a real one. You made it all the way through the video, and I just want to say thank you. When I swim through the comments, I'm like, man, it's a real one. That's my guy. And I just appreciate you guys. I really do, man. This was the most disturbing videos on the internet today. See you tomorrow.